For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to Strat News Global and welcome to The Gist, our signature show on foreign affairs, security, defense, technology and trade. I'm Surya Gangadharan and I'd like to welcome our guest, Asanga Abeyagoonasekera, a Sri Lankan academic and foreign policy analyst. You've seen him on our on Strat News Global before. Asanga, thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So we are looking at Sri Lanka today, which declared an economic emergency last month in the wake of the pandemic and rising food prices. There's also talk of some kind of a military takeover, and these are some of the questions that we are going to ask Asanga. So without further ado, Asanga, the talk of a military takeover of some kind, is this credible? Is it does it make sense to you?
Clearly you have a heavy militarization going on in Sri Lanka. In January, you could see the last report from the Human Rights Council on the militarization, 27 appointments. Adding to that is another appointment, making it 28. So the Major General controlling prices now on essential goods. So there is a clear militarization going on. So what's happening in Sri Lanka is really unfortunate. To Sri Lanka as well as to the entire region. I see a tremendous security threat coming in from the dysfunctionality of Sri Lanka, not only to its own people, but also to the region. So it's a serious concern. For the first time, Sri Lanka is having this sort of crisis. One side, you have militarization going on, and then you have the economic emergency, where the foreign reserves have dropped. The economics in Sri Lanka call it not even a crisis; it is calling a catastrophe. It's a free fall of the economy, as well as 2 months to go. You have the foreign reserves only left. It's barely minimum, but India, Bangladesh is coming forward. The government's the policy prescription to take the ultra nationalist sentiments, not to go with IMF program. So the serious it has impacted Sri Lanka, and also to repay its debts.
Mm-hmm. Asanga, I have a slight issue here. General Gotbaya Rajapaksa was a former general, led the war against the LTTE. So in that sense, there's already a fairly high level of military influence, perhaps, even if they are mostly retired people, government. And then you have the Rajapaksa brothers, who are all in various other portfolios, controlling things. So there is a need for militarization. What is it?
There's a serious trust deficit between the executive as well as the bureaucracy. You can clearly see his solution is always a military person, a former military person to be quickly appointed to solve the whatever the government challenge. Now this has never been a practice in Sri Lanka, in Sri Lankan history. So for the first time you are having this, but the government is using, be it the Human Rights Council or whatever the results coming out, or they are weaponizing it to their own political advantage, saying that the country is having a serious national security concern. To control, you need the military. So they're using these terms. The trust deficit is a serious danger that I see between the government administration as well as seeing the military as the last resort. It's a serious warning that I see. I can only raise a red flag to the Sri Lankan regime because of it's going closer to Myanmar. You could even look at Pakistan when the 8th Amendment was done to bring Ziaul Haq back then, I mean, it's a clear takeover of the government institutions, and also into the rule of law, which is a serious issue. I mean, pardoning political criminals, and then not only pardoning, and also appointing them as chairmen from government institutions, which is really concerning, and using arbitrary arrest, using Prevention of Terrorism Act, and also the March, the Act on Radicalization. So you cannot see everyone as a threat, identify everyone as a terrorist. So these are serious concerns. I mean, for the first time, we are seeing all this, and some of my researchers have captured this from January. They've looked at it, but the danger's been sort of seen in some of the reports that I have read.
Is there unrest visible in the streets against the Rajapaksas? I mean, I know if an economic crisis and commodities are in short supply, price rise and all that, there will be unrest. But otherwise, is there a broader agitation against the Rajapaksa brothers?
Well, the pandemic has worked well with the regime, because obviously you cannot have protests, you cannot have people outside. But I see from the facts that I'm gathering, there is a reorientation of the majority voters who brought them to power. Their sentiments have changed from the beginning, 2019, the end. I mean, when you look at it. So there is a reorientation towards a more moderate ground, because the situation on the economy has impacted each and everybody's lives. Then you have the family expanding its positions as well as. So I mean, people are seeing this, and they're not so. I would say, happy of what's going on. So the pandemic has helped the Rajapaksas in a way to keep the people, in their homes, as well as you have the military doing the contact tracing and various and the lockdown situation right now. So so I mean, I would see that, Sri Lanka had two youth insurrections, back in 1971, 1989, because of the economic condition and political conditions in the country, by the Sinhalese Buddhist majority. They were the ones who. So the Sinhalese Buddhist majority is quite different to the minorities. So how they would take this up, I see a reorientation of their earlier position, that Gotbaya would be, solving all the problems, as well as, giving them the it was Singapore that was seen, projected by Gotbaya, that he would bring economic development, as well as but things have not. They're blaming the pandemic, but you cannot blame the pandemic for the economic crisis right now. Only you can't blame, because other countries are also, like Bangladesh or other South Asian countries are also
doing better.
facing.
So you would say that at the core there's really mismanagement by the Rajapaksa brothers of the economy?
Definitely, full control of it. So right now the governor's been changed, yesterday. So they're doing a lot of resetting, reset cabinet portfolios, the main cabinet portfolios, such as the Foreign Ministry, the Ministry of Health, was reset. But they're expecting results from these resets. But I don't see, because the government's policy prescription has not changed. Regardless of the person who's coming in, would have to take forward the policy prescription, which is the sort of malign mercantilist positions. The closed the economy, the import restrictions that's been for more than 700 goods. And what the agenda, which is the of the Rajapaksas, to have sort of export-driven economy, and the tight control has sort of created multiple effects, be it at the Human Rights Council, which is a serious warning given yesterday by Michelle Bachelet. So, I mean, she's absolutely correct on many of her observations. So there is a direct rejection going on from the Sri Lankan government. So this is what I clearly explained. So the rejection is basically saying that the Human Rights Council decisions would further polarize Sri Lanka. No, I cannot accept that. Because you don't have a solution in Sri Lanka for reconciliation or be it on the you cannot do reconciliation when you're arresting people under the PTA. So you are doing two things now. The best example is the India Sri Lanka the ICS, the integrated country strategy, which was put forward by the ambassador, the High Commissioner in Delhi. I read it. It's a very good report. I mean, I commend that report. Done very well. But the thing is now, if you take even the third goal of on working together on India Sri Lanka, I mean, on rules-based order, on norms, democratic values, So I mean, we are far from that. Sri Lanka is not practicing that. I mean, so how do you expect what's on the paper to actually materialize?
So I want to come now to China. Is the solution to some of the economic problems? From what I read, China is seen as the go-to guy now for perhaps a bailout of some kind.
China is coming in as the rescuer for giving security to the Rajapaksas on the human rights issue, the economic issue, the pandemic or the vaccine diplomacy. Now, there's a danger of China doing this. This is my warning because, I mean, China coming in, I mean, Sri Lanka for the first time, its foreign secretary is talking about Xinjiang, human rights concerns. Our foreign secretaries have never spoken on, on China's human rights concerns. So for the first time, you're doing that. Trying to sort of project that there is much more strategic relationship between China and Sri Lanka. But the problem of South Asia, I mean, if you look at it generally in South Asia right now, is the vacuum that was created or the void that was created by the US exit. So whether China would be able to take up, would take up some sort of initial responsibility. But if it keeps on, supporting this functionality of countries or undemocratic practices, I mean, China would not be seen as a leader. Or so there is a serious test case here also, and there is a clear warning of supporting, not. I mean, the last visit of the Minister of Defense from China, they clearly mentioned that we support you support our human rights, and we support your human rights. I mean, it's clear. I mean, it doesn't make any. I mean, this is the initial test case for China. Also, I mean, it doesn't. It's not on the right direction.
Yeah. So in quite right through, there was no comment on even the economic emergency, if I recall correctly. Is this unusual? I mean, the silence from India?
No, I mean, obviously India, I mean, they've been sort of, I mean, look at the 400 million currency swap that they have given. I mean, they're assisting Sri Lanka. I mean, what Dr. Jaishankar's last visit to, into Colombo, I mean, he clearly mentioned of the importance of, the process on the reconciliation, the devolution of power, working with the minority concerns. So, I mean, the government has mentioned that we will look into all those, but I mean, there is no tangible results. I mean, every time there is a beautiful ICS written, there is comments being, mentioned, but there is no tangible results. This is what the Human Rights Commissioner also saying. Where are the results? So there is no results because you are doing the opposite of what you are supposed to do. Because there is a limitation that India could do because if democratic norms have been suppressed, the rule of law, so India has a serious concern because you are opening another window from the south, while you have concerns already from the western borders, the eastern borders. I mean, you have a serious concern from the south. So be it the security threat, which happened, from the Easter Sunday. These are serious issues. You cannot arrest more than, they have arrested under the PTA so many people. So are you rehabilitating them? You're grooming. Tell ourselves. So there is a serious issue which needs to be looked at. So India is concerned, I believe, and should be concerned because what the people or the civil society.
I have some comments here. Asanga, I have some comments here, mostly focused on China. Varun Pratap says their influence is growing at a faster rate. He's obviously referring to China. Then we have another comment from Matara. I hope Sri Lankan leadership is sensible enough to realize it, meaning the Chinese influence in Sri Lanka, which appears to be growing all the time. And we also have another comment from Nakshatra Roy. No military presence of China in Sri Lanka. That should be our red line. You think some of these things about China are reflected in society in Sri Lanka? We've heard of some unrest and some, dissent, but is this spreading this concern about China?
China's concerns come because when it comes to the economy and the debt trap, there is a clear debt trap right now in Sri Lanka. If the government keeps on saying there is no debt trap and the other borrowings are much more higher, and some of the academics also say that other borrowings are much more higher, you might see it on the paper, but the issue is that you have a strategic trap. That's what I'm trying to say. My last book clearly highlights there is a strategic trap. It's a long-term trap. You could see that from the port city that they took over, and there could be articles saying that it's not going to be militarized. You're not even seeing that. Port city, you are getting only a rent income, and what you have is strategic assets of Sri Lanka given to China, and this clearly has a long-term implication to the country's sovereignty, the country's national security. So there is a serious concern, and it has a concern for India also. So what I think the Sri Lankan government should be doing is following the norms or the global norms of rules-based order, the international laws, as well as and protecting its sovereignty. Not giving it strategic assets, thinking that China would bail out on it, even at the Human Rights Council, or be it at from the economic crisis that they're going through. So I don't see that the Sri Lankan foreign policy. We speak about a balanced foreign policy, non-aligned, neutral. These are the words that have been used by in our past, but not a China tilt or China bandwagoning foreign policy. Right now, what you have is, clearly, the USMCC, the 480 million grant, which Sri Lanka lost, is huge. Just imagine if we had that at this crisis, we would have, at least done some, social development work as well as some infrastructure. But what the government, the commission was saying that there's a national security threat from the MCC, a grant. So, I don't, I think that's far from that, and we are going in the wrong direction.
So last question, Asanga. There is a view among some people who have been observing Sri Lanka for a long time, who traveled there, reported from there, that the Rajapaksa brothers have not forgotten how Mahinda Rajapaksa, that they engineered his removal in the elections some time ago. And there's an anti-India vein in them which they're carrying forward. Do you agree with this?
No, 1.0, the Rajapaksa first initial regime, and 2.0 of Gotbaya, there is not much of difference in their foreign policy, clearly. And what the India posture is also the same. I don't see much difference. But here is a weak Mahinda Rajapaksa, who's at the government right now, although he's the prime minister. You can see why I'm saying he's weak, because of the heavy militarization of government servants, appointments that's been going on. Mahinda's time, you would not see that. I mean, Mahinda had control over the government administration as well as all that. But here is, I think, maybe so probably due to many factors. That is, I mean, you're seeing the heavy militarization taking over the country's institutions, and also dictating
But is there a
terms.
vein of anti-India over there? Is it there? Is it something that you see?
Yeah, because of the ultra-nationalist sentiment with the militarization that's coming in, saying that I mean, it's Minister of Provincial Council who mentioned that we don't agree with Provincial Council, we don't want to go with Provincial Council. They are clear statements. I mean, saying that. But India is saying, look, talk about the minority concern. There is a concern. Obviously, there is a concern, but the Rajapaksas don't want to address it. There is a rejection. I mean, you could say clear rejections going on. So, the 2.0 is quite similar to 1.0, but with a militarization, a heavy militarization.
So, reason to worry going forward. The crisis in Sri Lanka is clearly going to create more issues with India going forward, and that's something that we need to work on perhaps even more in the days ahead. Asanga Abeyagoonasekera, pleasure talking to you, and thank you for that insight. And we hope to keep this conversation going sometime ahead.
Thank you.
And for all of you out there who've been tracking our interviews, our web chats, keep coming with comments and observations and your questions. And let me also remind you that we are doing a climate series, a series on climate change, 4 parts. Please tune into it, see our promo which is already up, and do join us when we begin that series. Thank you and goodbye.